Today's video is brought to you by Shopify. More in a little bit.
12 iconic Nintendo characters, 9 total stages, endless hours of entertainment. Though for the purpose of this video, let's just say 12 hours. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. I completed Super Smash Bros., the original, for the Nintendo 64, because one, I'm feeling nostalgic for one of my favorite games, and it's the birth of the platform fighter. 2, I am completing too much shit right now. I'm completing Final Fantasy 16, Tears of the Kingdom. There's too much shit on me. There's too much. So this is a break. This is a break.
Yes! All glory goes to the winner. Over. Wake up! Last one standing wins. KO!
Let's take it back. Hit the rewind button on your VCR. It's a Saturday morning in 1999. You're sitting down with a great big bowl of Reese's Puff cereal, ready to watch some Batman Beyond or Rocket Power. A commercial comes on, and you're suddenly faced with life-sized mascot versions of Mario, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, and Pikachu, blissfully dancing through a field as the Turtles So Happy Together plays. The next thing you know, these four titans of gaming are having an all-out brawl, throwing each other around like rag dolls as a graveled voice announcer places all of this madness in context and gameplay footage appears on screen. All you can think is, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Super Smash Bros. Was coming, and it was about to change the game. Pitting classic characters against each other is a tradition as old as pop culture itself. Godzilla versus King Kong, Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula, Alien versus Predator, the list goes on. Even in Nintendo's own history, crossovers were common. You could see Mario characters in Link's Awakening, or catch a glimpse of Samus in Super Mario RPG. But it wasn't until the advent of Super Smash Bros. That Nintendo's biggest stars would straight up fight each other. But Masahiro Sakurai didn't just roll up to Nintendo's shareholders with a notepad that simply read Mario plus punching plus Pikachu equals profit. Around the time HAL Laboratory's finished development on Kirby Superstar, trusted Nintendo developers started concepting and developing games for the Nintendo 64. Around 96, Sakurai developed a couple of prototypes for potential N64 games. One of those prototypes was a 4-player free-for-all fighting game with no health bars. This prototype was known as Dragon King, but looking at the found footage that Sakurai shared on his own YouTube channel, you can clearly see how this game turned into Smash. Sakurai, like myself, loved fighting games from the early 90s, but he noted a couple of issues that he thought could be solved uniquely. In many fighting games, complex combos completely lock out some players from even approaching a game or having any sort of chance against a more experienced player. Sakurai focused on creating a game where inputs were quick and simple, a response to the increasing complexity of other fighting games in the space. At this point in his career, Sakurai is probably as monumental as a creator such as Shigeru Miyamoto or Hideo Kojima. But at the time, Super Smash Bros. Was a bit of a gamble. Sakurai at the time had made a name for himself with Kirby, and HAL Laboratories had more than proven its worth. But taking those talents to 3D on a new system with an unproven concept is an entirely different challenge. In any fighting game, the characters and the roster are the first thing that players see and identify with. But rather than spend time creating a group of new faces for players to learn and love, HAL Laboratories negotiated to have Nintendo's most popular IPs represented in this game, and the rest is history. There's no denying that Smash executed the concept of the platform fighter so well that no one else has come close since. Rather than just pitting two characters against each other, Smash made fighting feel totally different. Instead of health bars, characters accumulate damage percentages. The higher your percentage, the further you fly. The goal in Smash is to knock your opponents off screen for a KO. Whether you're playing with a set amount of lives or you're in a timed match, with items or without them, on teams or free-for-all, victory in Smash can only be achieved achieved by blasting your opponents off screen. Super Smash Bros. 64 has a couple of different ways to play, but it is bare bones. There's a single player mode where you face off in stage after stage of enemies before finally battling the mysterious Master Hand. Then there's the versus mode where you set the parameters and go nuts against TPUs, your best friends, or your worst enemies. Most people think of multiplayer when they think of Smash. The single player feels pretty satisfying too. There's no plot to speak of, no in-game lore dump, no hidden Master Hand backstory, and don't you all come at me with the well actuallys, because it just isn't present in this game. There is no meaningful interaction between these characters. This truly feels like an arcade dream come to life. The toy box you dreamt about right in front of you. So, here we are. It is a bit strange going back to the very first original Super Smash Bros. After the years-long journey that accompanied the initial release and fighter pack follow-ups of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. By comparison, Smash 64 feels almost quaint, but there is still a lot to chew on for completionists. Okay, so at the time of writing this game is not available on the Nintendo Switch Online service yet. I had to dig out the N64, and even at that, it wasn't exactly great. So I had to use my little Wii machine, and yeah, the footage kind of didn't turn out so great as I wanted to. It's good, but you'll notice some weird things going on. First up was to unlock the entire roster of characters by deep diving into every aspect of the single player mode. It's no Subspace Emissary by any means, but I still think single player in Smash 64 is a fun time. It's short, but a fun time. The campaign looks the same for every character. You start off against Link on Hyrule Castle and proceed to battle every one of the 8 starting characters in some capacity, but it isn't all one-on-one fights. You battle a team of hat-wearing Kirbys, a herd of Yoshis, the Super Mario Brothers, whether or not you've unlocked Luigi yet, spoilers, even a supersized Donkey Kong with a couple of allies. No matter the difficulty or who your starting character is, the fights appear in the same order, culminating in a stage where you beat the tar off of 30 polygon models, and then Master Hand itself. Within the single player mode are unique challenge stages that change depending on which character you are controlling at the time. Break the targets and board the platforms. You can also access these from the main menu, and they're pretty self-explanatory. But if you missed out on the original Super Smash Bros., you might be unfamiliar, as Smash sequels didn't really continue these modes. There's also Race to the Finish, which remains the same for every fighter. In Break the Targets, your chosen character must use all of their skills to destroy 10 targets. Board the Platform presents a different kind of challenge, where players have got to move quickly and carefully to land on big yellow platforms without falling out of bounds. There is something very satisfying about setting and breaking records in Break the Targets and Board the Platforms. Completing this game may not be very challenging, but it is non-stop fun. I had a lot of fun playing this game again. What Nintendo accomplished in this game is an undeniably great achievement. Even though Super Smash Bros. Lacks the endless depth of every subsequent sequel, this is a game that everyone should experience at least once in their life, especially in multiplayer mode.
All right, Gerard, yes. So we are shooting that Shopify ad today, so it's time to get to work.
Cameron, you're not wearing your TOVG shirt. It's TOVG Tuesdays, where you wear your shirt on Tuesdays. Where is your merch?
I always forget TOVG Tuesdays. Gerard, where am I gonna get my TOVG merch?
Go to thecompletionist.com, powered by Shopify.
Gerard, how did you...
Shopify.
How did you... What the... How did it... Where did this even... How is this...
Shopify is an all-in-one commerce platform that anyone can use. We here at TOVG use Shopify daily to get our products out the door. It lets you sell stuff online or in person and has integrations across all major social media platforms. If you like any of the stuff that Cameron's wearing in this video, you can use our Shopify-powered website to purchase it. It's not just for selling merch. Shopify is used by millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're new to the game, thinking about starting a business, or are a longtime entrepreneur like myself, Shopify will meet you where you are and make it easy to plus up your business, whatever it may be. Amazing customer marketing tools like Shopify Forms and Shopify Email make it easier than ever to move your products like never before. Thank you to Shopify for sponsoring this video. If you want to learn more, click the link in the box down below.
What is happening?
What is happening, Cameron, is that we have to feed Shoppy.
Gerard, who is Shoppy?
So, why complete Super Smash Bros. Today when it has been absolutely eclipsed by its sequels? I believe that Smash 64 is worth completing on its own merits. Retro gaming YouTubers, and I'm certainly not excluding myself here, often talk about whether or not an older title holds up. But I want to go one step further and say that not only does Super Smash Bros. Hold up, it's one of the few games of its era that is unequivocally great. It may be dated in many ways, but I think it rules. In terms of developer intent, well-executed mechanics, completion bonuses, and just plain fun, Super Smash Bros. Can still stand tall today. In an excellent video on his YouTube channel, Mr. Sakurai acknowledges that Smash is often called an antithesis to fighting games, but not a rejection of them. But it looks and feels completely different from 90% of the genre. It is accessible and inputs are notably much simpler. Now, this put some people off at the time, even me. I pretty much grew up in the school of Capcom and the hyper fast stylings of arcade style fighting games like Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, but I came around. The goal of HAL Laboratories and Nintendo was to appeal to a wide audience with Smash. They absolutely succeeded and established a formula that is enjoyable on its surface and has a ton of depth for more hardcore players. Sakurai's long-time development philosophy shines through here, of letting players enjoy the game however they want. The accessibility of Smash is its strength, and I think it's had a trickle-down effect of giving people the confidence to try more complicated fighters over the years. I'd love to know what the Smash to Guilty Gear pipeline looks like for many of you out there if possible. Interestingly, this philosophy doesn't exactly apply to the unlockables. The 4 secret characters, spoilers I guess, have specific criteria that must be met before you can challenge them, defeat them, and add them to the roster. Smash sequels would go on to introduce alternate unlock methods, like completing a certain amount of versus matches, or simply beating the story or arcade modes accordingly. But in our case, we had to do it the good old-fashioned way. All that to say, unlocking Jigglypuff, Ness, Captain Falcon, and Luigi is probably the biggest challenge in the game. But doing so isn't that difficult at all. And for completionists, you'll encounter most of these criteria naturally if you focus on the single-player content. Jigglypuff can be challenged by simply beating the single-player campaign on any difficulty with any character. Simple. Done. Captain Falcon, who bears mentioning hasn't been the star of a new game in the US since 2004, can be unlocked after beating the campaign in 20 minutes or less. You get Luigi by finishing all of the Break the Target challenges with the 8 starting characters, and you can do so without even going through the whole campaign if you just go straight to the menu. The most difficult character to unlock is Ness of Earthbound fame. To have the chance to bring Ness to the fold, you must first beat the single player mode on normal difficulty or higher with 3 lives or less, not using any continues. In the case of any of these characters, you've got to battle them one-on-one with 1 stock. If you win the fight, you get the fun little splash screen with the blurb about the character you unlocked, and now you can select them in single player or multiplayer from then on. Even if you haven't touched Smash before, or in my case, even if you haven't played it in nearly 20 plus years and are a little bit rusty, you can unlock everyone in about an hour or 2 tops. Some of the Break the Target stages can be a bit difficult if you don't have everyone's moves totally down, but even at that, these serve more as an additional training stage than actual challenges. Unlocking each new fighter also adds more to the data collection in the main menu. Each character has a short profile and a list of games they've appeared in, a sort of proto trophy room if you will. It made me really smile seeing these profiles, especially knowing how many games they've all eventually featured down the line. Except for you, Ness, and Captain Falcon. Except for the both of you. I'm sorry, we know. The credits that roll after the single player campaign also hide secrets for eagle-eyed players, though not of those who know a thing or two about Nintendo's history. As each developer's name flies by, you can click on it and see their role behind the scenes. This is a great way to see who did what on the game, if you're curious. If you don't scroll too fast, you might notice Shigesato Itoi's name in the credits, or even the fact that they spelled Charles Martinet's name wrong. Beating the game with any character earns you a unique congratulations screen, but there isn't any kind of gallery to see them in after the fact. Surprisingly enough, there are a few more things to unlock beyond these 4 secret characters. The Mushroom Kingdom unlocks after completing the campaign with every character, and by playing at least 1 match on every stage in Versus mode. This is still one of my favorite Smash stages ever. It's chaotic, the warp pipes are great, and the falling platforms are super fun to exploit. These challenges are extremely useful for showcasing advanced movement techniques, like using Ness's PK Thunder to yeet yourself across the stage, or learning the exact arc of Yoshi's egg throw. Once you've unlocked all the characters and stages, versus mode starts to feel more complete. Okay, so I know this game is not as quote-unquote good as any other of the Smash sequels out there, but there's something simple and satisfying about Super Smash Bros. The developers, they called their shot, and with the help of geniuses like Satoru Iwata, they were able to deliver an incredible game that defined what this type of fighter could look like in the future. It can feel limiting to go back to the much more constrained Smash 64 after the true insanity that is Smash Ultimate. In Smash 64, characters can't air dodge. They can only throw left and right, not up and down. You can't grab items out of the air. There is no side B special attack. That means no missiles for Samus, cape for Mario, or even side headbutt by DK. Things feel a lot slower and perhaps less epic, but there's still that chaotic, enjoyable energy here that flows throughout every inch of this title. It lacks the polish that would come with later iterations, of course, but taken on its own, it feels fresh and exciting at pretty much any given moment. I'll always remember the speculation that followed with this game. Getting into arguments with friends about who should or shouldn't be included in a future sequel, wondering what deep cuts Nintendo would pull from, which Pokemon should appear from the balls, and why Golding was the useless one instead of Magikarp. I have tons of friends who learned about Earthbound for the first time after learning to love Ness as a character, myself included. The Smash series would eventually become a springboard for Nintendo fans to learn about new franchises, and I think that Ness and Captain Falcon was the start of that. Engage with versus mode often enough, and you'll stumble across one final unlockable, the item switch. If you play 100 versus mode matches, you then have the option to determine which and how many items appear in versus mode. And this is where the start of no items 3 stock Final Destination came from. Though of course there is no Final Destination to play on in versus mode in this game. It's a fine bonus, but given the customization options that are available from the start, it's a bit strange that you have to play so much of the game to unlock this option. I appreciate that there is a fair amount to unlock for single players, not people who are single. Nothing wrong with being single. Players who are completing the game by themselves. Players who are alone. Lonely people. You know what I mean. There's a lot to chew on, even if you aren't playing versus mode with 3 other friends on the couch. It almost goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways. Super Smash Bros. Shines as a multiplayer experience. Smash 64 is at its best when you've got a group of friends to pummel and scream at. In some ways, going back to this game after playing exclusively Smash Ultimate for the last several years is kind of an equalizing experience. You know how you always have that one friend with the fighting game who completely obliterates everyone he plays against? And how you can never catch up to them because they're the only one with a copy of the game? Well, since no one on my staff has played Smash 64 with any regularity lately, we were all on the same footing when we finally sat down and played multiplayer together. The excitement of playing Smash 64 is still difficult to match. At the time, it felt revelatory. Between this, GoldenEye, WWF No Mercy, Diddy Kong Racing, and Mario Kart 64, local multiplayer was in a very unique place that still feels special to me. There really is nothing quite like seeing the polygonal version of Donkey Kong smacking the hell out of Party Hat Pikachu. I loved Link's especially chunky sword. I even found the projectile effects charming. Samus's Charge Blast and Mario and Luigi's Fireballs are just 2D sprites in a 3D world. Even the Pokemon that can be summoned look basically like paper cutouts. They look out of place, and yet there's nowhere else they'd fit in. Super Smash Bros. From its very first iteration did an amazing job of uniting several different aesthetics into one cohesive look. Even if that look is, you know, kind of ugly. Hey, it's the N64. Big chunky polygons were all the rage. And even if this era of games hasn't aged as gracefully as the 16 and 32-bit era, it still has a nostalgic appeal to me. When it's all said and done, the Super Smash Bros. Opening cinematic is still the purest distillation of its concept. It's playtime, taking your favorite characters and treating them like a shelf full of action figures from different universes. Sakurai, HAL Laboratories, and Nintendo struck gold with a fantastic concept that has only been further refined over the years. Completing Super Smash Bros. Felt like taking a refresher history course. I was reminded how much fun this game is. Even if it looks and plays a little rough, it's still a blast, especially with a few friends. There are a decent amount of unlockables and bonuses, but if you've never understood the hype around Smash, and you do have access to this title, I say give it a shot and learn for yourself why this series has grown to be one of Nintendo's most beloved.
Super Smash Bros. Is a stone-cold classic. It popularized the platform fighter and brought together Nintendo icons to beat the living hell out of each other in a way that was both entertaining and arguably educational. There's a surprising amount of depth to uncover, and after unlocking everything, you can enjoy the game to its fullest. That's why I give Super Smash Bros. My completionist rating of completed. That's all the time we have for today, guys. This video is brought to you in part by our Patreon. Become a patron today over at patreon.com/thecompletionist and join in on the fun. There's a free tier, so you can see what it's all about and then decide if you want to join us later on. Until next time,